interpretation of third parties intervening. We have a time enough that you should be able to ask about every question you need to ask that's appropriate. I will go through the guidelines, but please first join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is sponsored by Lake Country Media, which is Lake Country Penny Saver in the Orleans Hub, and it's being hosted by the Holley Central School District. All the folks that are here are volunteers. This is kind of patterned after the League of Women Voters that you probably know no longer exists in Orleans County. A few of the roles are a little bit different, but it's very similar to that. We have screeners, and I'd like to introduce them. Christy Wiley-Neal, Sandy Heiss, Chris Sarvell, and our articulator, Judy Kohler. We also have a timekeeper, Dick Remley. At this time, I'd like to introduce the candidates, and then I'll go over guidelines. Please be aware that they're not sitting in any particular order of importance or significance. It was randomly chosen. The order that they answer questions will be the same, and we will move it, and a different person will start the answer on every question so that everybody will have the opportunity to go first and last. Mayoral candidates, Sean O'Mara, and Brian Sarakti. Trustees, Alexa Downey, Connie Nenny, Robbie Shubno, Kevin Lynch. So the guidelines are, we're going to have 2-minute opening statements, and each of them will do that, the mayoral candidates and the trustees. After that, we're going to have approximately 20 minutes of questions, many of which you have already set up on cards that will be directed to the mayoral candidates. We will then do the same thing with the trustees, and then we will open it up so any question can be asked to all the candidates that are sitting up here. The reason for that is there might be leadership questions that pertain to a mayoral candidate and not a trustee. A team question or an agenda item that might be more pertinent to a trustee and not the mayoral. So we've given you the opportunity to kind of put your questions, if you have a significant person you'd like to ask them to, but it will be asked to both candidates that are running for that position. All questions have to have come in on the cards, and you've sent quite a few up already. There are no questions from the floor at any time. If at any point in time somebody says something, you say, I've got a question pertaining to that. Raise your hand, we'll get a card to you, you can write it down, set it up here. Grammar and spelling, and even handwriting, do not matter much. Just get it on the card, honestly, it'll be corrected up here. If you have a question, and it doesn't quite sound like your question, it's because we got 2 or 3 of the same type of question, and we put the 3 together and made one question out of it. There are going to be different lengths of time for the answers, and you'll hear that announced, because there are going to be questions that are a 30-second answer. It might be a yes or no answer, and we can't take 2 minutes waiting for each of them to answer a yes or no question. The screeners decide what they think the length of the answer should be. Roughly, they're going to be about a minute. Do you have any questions regarding the guidelines or the process? Okay, I think we're ready to begin. We're going to start with opening statements, and they'll be 2 minutes, and you're going to go in the order that you're sitting. So, Mr. Amar, you can go first. Begin when you're ready.
My name is Sean Amar. I've been a lifelong resident of the village of Holley. I chose to raise my family here because I love the small town atmosphere and sincerely love the village of Holley. Regardless of the rumors that have been spread, the reason I chose to run for mayor is because I believe that I have the determination and the dedication to make this town great again. I plan to bring our small town atmosphere back to life. Over the past 5 years, we have lost many businesses that our residents relied on. The first two that come to mind are a bank and a supermarket. My opponent mainly focused in his campaign on grants that the village has been awarded under his leadership. I commend him on that. I too will be aggressive and persistent in obtaining those grants as well. But I also want to restore the beauty of our village that it once had. I promise to work with my team, Alexa Downey, Robin Shubmelt, and the other board members, without a personal agenda, and do just that. For the past 25 years, my career as a police officer has required me to mitigate conflict and come up with solutions that parties are all happy with. The career has forced me to think on my feet and make quick decisions, which I believe has become one of my most valuable skills. I admit that I am not a politician, but I know that through my experiences, I can get the results that Holley desperately needs. We are a great community, one that I am personally proud of, and one that I believe we can make it better. I am initially going to focus on bringing a bank, a grocery store, and other businesses to this village. We will fill the empty storefronts in our once busy village square that was Holley's trademark. I also want to focus on our deteriorating roads, sidewalks, curbings, so we can bring the small town beauty back to life in our village. Holley is unique compared to every other village because of you, the residents. We have residents that care about their community and want to be proud of the village again. Our residents want to be able to say, yes, I live in the village of Holley, and be proud of that statement. Our residents want to see these changes happen. Many people hear from campaigns that the candidate is going to do this and that, but things never get done. If chosen to be your next Holley mayor, I guarantee you as a resident and a taxpayer, I will accomplish these goals that I have set forth for this town. We will make Holley great again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sorocki. 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Sorocki. I've had the privilege of being your mayor for the past 2 years, and I'm running for re-election. First of all, I want to thank Lake Country Penny Saver, the school, Orleans Hub for sponsoring this event. I'd also like to thank all the volunteers and all the candidates for being here tonight, and most importantly, all you residents for being here. This is a very important event. I'm running for re-election now for the same reason that prior till now, I chaired the planning board for 8 years, from 2005 till 2013. In that time, I also chaired the comprehensive plan committee, as well as the BOA Step 1 committee. It's a Brownfield Opportunity Area Grant, planning grant. Those two grants that we've attained, those two planning documents that we created are key to what we're doing today. It's also the same reason why I ran 3 years ago, I also ran for trustee, and I was trustee for 3 years from 2013 until 2016. It's also the reason why I ran for mayor in 2016. I proudly served as your mayor for the last 2 years. It's because I truly love this village, and I want to utilize my knowledge, professional experience, hard work, and dedication to make the village a better place to live, to do business, and to raise your family. My main goals have always been to maintain low village taxes, promote good stewardship of the taxpayer dollars through controlling spending and improving efficiency of village services, strong support of the village police department, encouraging new business growth, and improving our community through grants. Throughout my 3 years as trustee and 2 years as mayor, I've worked towards accomplishing these goals and will continue to do so if re-elected. You hear a lot tonight about infrastructure projects and the renovation of the old school. These are extremely important to our community. These projects are at a critical juncture right now, and our primary focus right now is there's a lot of money involved. I've always said that while being on the board, I never wanted to be part of a board that just met and said no, or voted no on things. I want to do projects that provide improvements in this village. This is what I do in my professional career, with my experience in consulting engineering for over 25 years, which includes land development, utility design, survey, environmental, federal, state, and local permitting, as well as construction. I feel I'm uniquely qualified to be mayor and to lead this community at this time. Thank you.
Sorry for the Thank you. Ms. Nenny.
First, I also would like to thank Lake Country Penny Saver and Orleans Hub for sponsoring this event. I'd also like to thank all the volunteers tonight for giving of your time and everyone in the audience for coming. My name is Connie Nenny, and I've been working with the village for over 10 years, first as a clerk treasurer and then as a trustee. I'm running simply because I care about what happens here, and I have knowledge and experience to bring to the position. This isn't a game. I lost my spot here, sorry. This isn't a game, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. This is a business, it's a community, and it's home to so many of us. The incumbents you see here tonight, Brian, Kevin, and myself, along with other board members and staff, have been hard at work working on transforming this village through planning and developing multi-million-dollar projects and obtaining grants. Those things didn't just fall on our lap. We planned, developed, and sought them out. I know we haven't seen a lot of action on them yet, but I promise you, you will see and feel every bit of them when they are done. I want to finish what we started, and I don't want to stop here. I'd like to plan, develop, and apply for these same grants and carry them throughout the whole village. Now, there are no guarantees that we would get every grant we apply for, but we have the knowledge and experience from these ones to help us. For the benefit of everyone, I want to continue sharing my knowledge and experience at the table when discussing the issues our community faces. I'm running because I want to continue the progress.
Thank you. Ms. Downey.
Good evening. My name is Alexa Downey. I have been a resident of this wonderful town for the past 12 years. Coming up from New York City, I'm always asked, how did a girl from Brooklyn adjust to small town living, having grown up in a big city? My answer is simple. The people of this town welcomed me and my family with open arms. It didn't take long for this city girl and her kids to feel right at home here in Holley, giving us a feeling like we have lived here all our lives. The love shown to me and my kids by the generous people, not only in the village, but the surrounding towns of Clarendon and Holberton, is a big motivation as to why I decided to run for village trustee. I want to give back to the people and help increase the sense of pride to this historical canal town with my positivity, dedication, and encouraging attitude. It was in the summer of 2006 that Mrs. Barber persuaded me to get a job at Holley Elementary. It was one of the best choices I ever made. Working at the school gave me a grand opportunity to meet so many wonderful families. It became very clear to me early.
You'll have to talk loud at the moment.
Okay.
Try this one.
Thank you.
Can I give her time back on the clock?
I'm sorry.
You'll have to talk loud, Alexa.
Okay, no worries. I work with pre-Ks, this will be fine, that's okay. It became very clear to me early on that the school was the heart of the village. That is why, without any reservation, I threw my time and talent into as much as I could. Being a mom of 2 Holley Hawks, I felt the call, even though I worked there, to volunteer at the school events, to help with sports boosters, to support the PTSA, and eventually become co-president of it. I am personally involved. I want to help, and I do what it takes to create a wonderful environment for the children of the school district. I want to do the same for the town. I want to help restore the beauty I have heard so much about, a place where families are proud to call home, a place visitors are eager to return. Working with the board members, village employees, and the community, I know we could accomplish this.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robin Shubmo, and I'm running for the position of trustee. I'm a lifelong Holley resident, and I have resided in the village for the past 20 years with my husband, 3 children, and father-in-law. Some might ask why I'm running for trustee now, and my answer is simple. I now have more time to do so as 2 of my 3 kids have graduated. I'm not so busy running in 3 different directions for sports, games, dance, etc. I can focus more time on items that I believe are important. I'm also a firm believer that if you don't try and make a change, then you can't complain when changes aren't made. I'm also committed and dedicated to working with all community members to bring the village back to life and make the village a better place for all. Thank you.
Mr. Lynch.
Hi, Kevin Lynch. I'm a lifelong resident here. My roots are deep in the village. I live in a house that my mother was born in 1924. My grandfather bought it in 1919, so next year it'll be 20 years that the house has been in my family. I also own a house on Getty Street. So 4 years ago when I first decided that I was going to become a trustee, to run for trustee. The only reason I did is because I just wanted to see where our tax money was going, and I just retired from my job. I worked on a canal for 36 years, and I just retired from my job and thought I might be able to do something for the village. Once I got into it, I didn't realize what I got myself into. There was a lot more to it than I anticipated. I knew a lot about budgets because that's what I dealt with when I was working on the canal. And I just wanted to be part of the village to support all the jobs and stuff that were going on. I've gotten to know all the village employees, and I'm the liaison between the village board and most of the employees. I go to the electric department, and I go to the village DPW, and talk to those guys about the jobs that's going on in this village. And since I've been there, we've gotten a lot of grants, and one of the big grants we got was for the old high school, which I was that was the last class that graduated out of the old high school. And I took a tour through it with John. No, actually it wasn't with John, it was with Skip, when the home leasing first came in to look at it. And it was just like walking down memory lane, and I'm so glad that that is going to be vital, because if we did not get this from home leasing, it would have cost the village between $1 to $2 million to tear that down. It's either the school or the village was going to have to tear that down. So that's one of the big projects that I'm very, very proud that we did, and hopefully I want to see it through to the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next segment, how about a round of applause for these folks? Between now and the time we get the PA working, we have somebody coming down for it. If those folks in the back can't hear, please move closer, because they're going to be hoarse, talking as loud as they can by the time this is over. So if you are having a difficult time, feel free at any time to move forward. The next set of questions are mayoral questions. Mr. Surratt, you're going to get the first chance at the very first question. And it is...
Mike.
Sir. Yes.
1 minute.
Thank you very much. 1 minute. And it's written down here, but I was so busy thinking about reading the question. So, ready? Please articulate how you feel the village can more fully utilize the Erie Canal.
Great question. What we've done so far, if I can touch on that. So we've seen lots of park improvements, lots of some tree clearing on the village side, selective clearing to improve views down to the falls. You've seen we've hosted lots of events down there, starting from June Fest. We had the News 8 barbecue last year, bringing folks down to our canal park. Okay, we have a very unique feature here. We're not like most villages that are on the canal. Most villages have their business centers on it. We actually have a park and a camping area, and it's actually quite unique. That's the area we need to focus on, because we do have something that's unique from other villages. So that's the area we need to focus on and promote that.
Thank you. Mr. O'Mara, please articulate how you feel the village can more fully utilize the Erie Canal.
I believe that we need to contact New York State, see if there's other grants available to build up the banks of the canal, form a bigger park area, more docking for boats to come into. We have a long area of cement embankments that we could utilize and put more docks on, bring in more boaters throughout the summer season, and when we bring in more boaters, it's going to be more business for the village.
Thank you. Take a sip of water if you want, because you get to begin the next question as well.
All right, I'm good.
Please give your opinion on consolidating the DPW and electrical departments with one supervisor.
I believe if we consolidate down to one supervisor, that's going to save wages, that's going to save a superintendent's vehicle, which is going to be a savings to the village, which we can utilize that money elsewhere to put it into our roads, put it into sidewalks that aren't going to be finished with the grants. Having one supervisor, we only have roughly under 10 employees. Having one supervisor can definitely handle 10 employees.
Okay. Thank you. Next question, you will begin, and it's, please give your opinion on consolidation of Holley Police with the Orleans County Sheriff.
Okay, I can't answer the same question as the county. I thought we were doing the same question, the electric and the DPW.
We are. Please give your opinion on consolidating DPW and electrical departments with one supervisor. You can answer the same question.
You didn't need 60 seconds to answer my question. So let me answer it this way. In theory, yes, you could have one supervisor in charge of 10 people. It happens all the time. The issue you're going to have is there's an operational question, which is the knowledge base by either supervisor. One supervisor has electric and water knowledge. The other supervisor has roads, sanitary sewer, storm sewer knowledge. Okay, so right now, not one particular supervisor has all the knowledge necessary, in my opinion, to run both departments. Secondly, there's a wage issue. There is a wage issue, and both of these supervisors are working supervisors, okay? So if you get rid of one supervisor, you still have to replace them with somebody else working in the field. These are not two guys that drive a desk all day. These are guys that are both out in the field. So you can't just simply get rid of a supervisor and replace them with just one, if that makes sense. So operationally, it doesn't make sense. Financially, it does not make sense. So if you have the right person, there's a potential there. Whereas at this point in time in the village, we do not have that.
Thank you. Mr. O'Mara, please give your opinion on consolidation of the Holley Police with the Orleans County Sheriff.
My opinion on that, I would never go for that. I started off my career in Holley. A lot of police officers that have went elsewhere have made themselves sergeants, lieutenants, moved up to chiefs. This is a stepping stone. A lot of Orleans County Sheriff's Department members have started in Holley and since went full-time other areas. I would never do that. I'm proud of my police department and I want to keep it here.
Thank you. Mrs. Rocky?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not in favor of that whatsoever. I happen to have the privilege of sitting on the steering committee that investigated that, and there was multiple options that were investigated as part of that study, and combining completely with or having an Orleans County Sheriff takeover was one of those options, and it did not make sense to me. Once you lose local control of your police department, you lose control of staffing, you lose control of shifts. There's too many things that we need to have here in this village. 24/7 police coverage being the primary one, which is the #1 concern of our residents, myself included. And going forward in that type of scenario, you cannot guarantee that type of level of service. The only way to guarantee it is to keep it here local and to keep that control here.
Very good. And you're going to get the next question. And it is, please give us your experience
I'm sorry?
with large multi-departmental budgets.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Please give us your experience with large multi-department budgets.
Sure. Well, my current profession is Vice President of Engineering for a local engineering and construction company. Under my charge is about 35 folks. They range from surveyors, natural gas engineers, civil engineers. We have 2 offices, one in Rochester and one in Pittsburgh. All those folks are under my guidance, under my charge. We have multiple budgets for each of those divisions within my control. So I have lots of experience managing them. From a local perspective, as I said, I've been trustee for 3 years and mayor for the last 2. It's been a very unique experience being able to manage DPW, electric and water, sewage treatment plant, police, and the office. So my experience in my professional life has led me to have the skill set, business acumen to be able to work through those issues, whether they're budgetary or operational, and I believe handle it with success.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Mara, please give us your experience with large multi-department budgets.
I gotta be honest, I don't have the experience in that. I'm a police officer. I've been a police officer for 25+ years, but I don't have that experience. But I would rely on my team, the other board members, my village clerk, to walk me through it and teach me how to run it. I'm willing to learn.
Thank you. Mr. O'Mara, how should the village board secure a bank and grocery store now that the Holley Gardens project is a reality?
I believe we should try and secure Save-A-Lot in Albion. He's very successful. He owns 6 to 7 Save-A-Lots. I believe if we contact Sabir, who owns the old Save-A-Lot, the old Super Duper building, and maybe offer him a tax incentive to maybe lower his rent to attract Save-A-Lot down there, I believe they would come down here and maybe give us a smaller store. Not a larger store like we used to have, but at least a smaller store where you can get meat, deli meats, dairy, that kind of stuff.
Mr. Siraki, how should the village board secure a bank and grocery store now that the Holley Gardens project is a reality?
Well, this is a very complex question. From the village's point of view, what we have done, I can tell you, we have contacted numerous banks, we've contacted numerous independent grocers. We have not reached out directly to, I have not reached out directly to the Save a Lot owner that's in Albion now, but we have through other means. I'm hopeful that in the future that is a possibility. These properties, whether it's a bank property or the supermarket property, these are privately owned properties. There's only so much that a village can do. We can encourage them to come here. We can write letters and ask them to come aboard. But one of the best things we can do to businesses like that is show that we are a community that's on the move. Show the progress that we have. Show the infrastructure improvements that we have. Show that we're investing in ourselves. Show that we have a large project coming our way, a $17 million project with 41 apartments, numerous tenants that are going to be within walking distance of the village square. Bringing that project here is what encourages those storefronts to get filled.
Thank you. Mr. Siraki, do you plan to lower village taxes? And if so, how?
Okay. Well, what we've done, what myself and the current board has done over the last couple of years, is we have maintained village taxes. This year we held the line. Okay. The previous year, I'd say over the last 3 years, our overall increase is somewhere between 1% and 2%. Certainly less than 2. The last 2 years they've been flat. Okay, and this is done through managing the budget. This is done through hard planning during the budgetary process. There's a very rigorous planning process that we go through in looking at the budget. And even once you have your budget established, it's scrutinizing every single purchase throughout the year. And I'm very happy to say that this year, as we're closing out, we are about 78 to 84% of our expenditures on all departments coming in under budget across the board. Okay, so the best way to do that is to look into the future. If we can maintain that level of expenditures, you can look at lowering taxes in the future. Okay, there's different challenges with that, your overall tax assessment and other things that are going on, but through our planning and budgetary process, that is how you can get there.
Thank you. Mr. O'Mara, do you plan to lower village taxes? And if so, how?
I believe we can stabilize the taxes. Today's society, I believe we have to maintain the services that we have, stabilizing the taxes without lowering them. If we start lowering, we're gonna lose services, we're gonna lose our police departments, we're gonna have to lower manpower in different departments, but I believe we can stabilize it and keep the services that we have.
Thank you. Mr. O'Mara, and this question will go down to the trustees as well. So you'll be off the hot seat for a while. And we'll all get to answer every question, I hope. What will you do if the Canal Corps wants to clear cut the Holley Falls Park embankment?
That's a good question. I believe, I've lived here all my life. Those trees have been there. I used to play on there. I used to ride a 4-wheeler, 3-wheelers. The trees are just part of our nature there. I mean, they're part of our bringing up. I think we need to contact a lawyer and we need to put an injunction, just like Fairport did, to halt the, cutting down of the trees. I mean, I believe when you start cutting them down, you're going to lose the beauty of the canal.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Rocky?
Yeah.
What will you do if the Canal Corps wants to clear cut the Holley Falls Park embankment?
I think the experience that we've had with them, because it's already occurred on the east side of the canal, which actually impacted my property personally, as well as a couple of my other neighbors. And I think what we've experienced since then, and I think what you'll find going forward is that if there is a plan going forward to do any more clear cutting on those embankments, there's going to be a much more thoughtful approach, a much more selective approach to clearing those trees. I think the clear cutting approach that they took, I don't believe that's going to work anymore. They understand the issues that they've had since then. We've had serious wind issues in our neighborhood now. There's been numerous, negative impacts from the way that they handle that project.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nenny, what will you do if the Canal Corps wants to clear cut the Holly Falls Park embankment?
My understanding is they do not want to do that at this time. If it came to our attention that they were gonna do that, then, of course, I think we need to get vocal. That's certainly something I don't want to see over there in the park. I think we need to draw everybody's attention to it in the community as a whole and get as much participation as possible. And attend any meetings, call for meetings if there isn't any, attend them and, let them know how we feel and stand up for what we feel is right. I mean, at this point, my understanding is that's not supposed to happen, but like Brian says here, you know, they are really aware now after everything that's happened about how people feel and being a little more careful.
Thank you. Ms. Downey, what would you do if the Canal Court decided to clear cut that embankment?
I agree with everyone's stance of doing what we can to make sure that that does not happen. It's visible driving by the bridge or visiting the park, how different the view is with the trees that they did cut. They did take away the beauty of the canal. I understand that it has caused issues with the people that have lived there. And I agree with what Connie said. We have to come together as a community and take a stance and make sure that they hear our voices. We may be a small town, but we can be loud, and we need to protect what is ours.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Sheldon?
I agree. I think it needs to be a community involvement. I think there needs to be, you know, a meeting with the community members, and everybody's voices needs to be heard regarding it. You know, everybody has a voice, has an opinion on it, and everybody should have that say in whether it happens or not. It does take, it detracts away from the beauty of the village.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lynch?
I agree with everybody right down the line here. I mean, nobody wants to have those trees cut down. Now, being a 36-year employee on the canal, I talked to the guys at the top that came around recently, both when they had the meeting here and the one that they, one in Brockport and the one they had in Albion. And it's not in the plans right now, but if it did come about, I mean, I think the village board should take a strong stance and actually do, maybe hire a lawyer or something, and follow the lead that's going on with Bushnell's Basin and out that way. I would be very much against that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shiraki, in the past 2 years, it's a 30-second question. How many village board meetings have you attended?
All of them but one, I believe I missed.
Okay, so you did not attend one.
Yeah, I've attended all of them with the exception of one when I was on vacation.
Okay. Ms. Denny?
In the last 2 years, well, I haven't missed many, but I'd say, depending on if you're talking about the special ones and all that, possibly 2 or 3. I also went on vacation, I think, twice.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Downey?
I have honestly not attended any board meetings
Okay.
because of prior obligations.
Mr. Schultz?
I have not attended any.
Okay, Mr. Lynch?
4 years I've been on the board, I think I've missed one.
So in the last 2 years, you might have missed one.
Yes, I might have
Okay.
missed one.
Very good.
No, actually, in the last 2 years, no. In the last 2 years, I've missed any.
Mr. O'Mara?
I have not attended any also.
Okay. Ms. Nenny, this question goes to you. Will you need to make adjustments to your current work schedules in order to fulfill the requirements of this position?
Do I need to make adjustments to my current work schedule?
Yes,
No,
to fulfill the requirements of this position.
no.
I will not have to make any adjustments.
No, I will not.
No, I'm retired.
Okay. So you're busier than ever. I know how that works. Mr. O'Mara?
My schedule, I got 25 years in law enforcement. I have future plans of retiring. I just don't know when. I can make myself available anytime. I work a 6-to-2 shift, 4 days on, 2 days off, so I'm available pretty much anytime. So no, I will not have to adjust.
Okay. Mr. Ryan?
Short answer is no. For 3 years as trustee and 2 years as mayor, I have not adjusted my work schedule whatsoever. I have
Okay.
flexibility within my schedule to make whatever time that is needed whenever I need to.
Thank you. This question goes to Ms. Downey first. How do you plan to improve efficiency to reduce expenses? Will this require personnel cuts? How do you plan to improve efficiency? And will this require personnel cuts? Efficiency and expenses within the village.
I do not believe that will require cuts. It will require talking to the employees and letting them know our expectations. Our village is small, but there is no reason that we shouldn't expect the highest level of commitment to the community, of service, of work ethic from any employee. So I would love to tell them that we know that they're great and that we expect greatness from them.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton? Dr. Rita?
No.
Okay.
The employees would just have to know that we're looking at their productivity, they're gonna have to manage their time effectively.
Break time. Is
Managing,
everybody awake again?
Why too late?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Put the time back on the clock, please. Okay.
managing their time efficiently, looking at productivity, too many breaks, that would have to be looked at and, spoken to that individual employee to make sure their time is managed efficiently.
Do you need me to read the question?
Yeah, please.
How do you plan to improve efficiency and reduce expenses? Will this require personnel cuts?
Is it working okay? First of all, we're pretty much down to the bare minimum of people that we can have in the village right now. The only way you can probably improve productivity is if we consolidated, shared services with other municipalities, which has been going on. That's how we did with the sewer department and the police department. We cut costs that way by consolidating with shared services with other villages.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow, how do you plan to improve efficiency and reduce expenses? Will this require personnel cuts?
I believe if you make your employees feel appreciated, they're gonna go 100 miles for you. That's all you gotta do. Make them feel appreciated. You don't have to yell at them, scream at them like they're a 6th grader. Talk to them as a professional. Let them know this needs to be done. We need to have this done by this such a date, and I believe they're gonna work for you.
I guess I'll touch on what Kevin had started with, which is our staff is down to basically a bare minimum, in my opinion. I think our major efficiencies are going to come through shared services. We contracted with Albion to take over our sewage treatment plant, and we turned that budget around. We contracted with the Village of Albion for police chief services, and we have improved policing services as well as administrative and staffing within our police department. That's the future. Willingness to share services with other municipalities is the way to go. Consolidation is not. I don't believe that there's a staffing issue per se with regards to inefficiencies.
Thank you.
Other than what everybody else has already said, I would say it's speaking with your supervisors and actually some of the other employees also to see if they see any place that maybe we could cut back or have savings. Sometimes, it might be something you've done here for years and years and you haven't given any thought, but maybe it's not necessary anymore. The shared services along with everybody else and also every budget, diving into everything like we do now, deep into it and asking all the questions that we need to.
Thank you. We're going to have some questions on it for trustees only. And Ms. Nettie, you can begin. is, do you have experience obtaining and/or administering grants? It's a 30-second answer.
Yes, I do. I actually wrote some small grant for the village for the concert series when I was clerk treasurer that we were awarded for a couple different years. And then most recently, you know, going after the sidewalk grant was really important to me. And also prior to that was the downtown kind of revitalization where the buildings were painted, the new restaurant that's going to open, that one there. And it takes a lot of work. It's not as easy as people think. The grant writer writes the grant, but you have to plan it, develop it, and put it into motion first.
Thank you.
On a large scale, I do not have experience with any grants per se, but I know working with the PTSA, we do on a smaller scale do things that bring in revenue to help the students at our school.
I do not have any experience with it.
I have a little experience just from the experience I have from being on the board for the last 4 years. Which wasn't much, but I'm a very good supporter of them and can help out when needed.
Okay, thank you. This goes to Ms. Downey first. Please give your position on consolidating the code enforcement position with another town's position. I think it means another town's code enforcement position.
Could you repeat that, please?
Please give your position on consolidating the code enforcement position with another town's position. I think the intent of it is to take two towns and combine them for a single code
Code
enforcement
enforcer?
position.
I think financially that would make sense. I would hope that the code enforcer that is chosen is a fair one. I know that we've talked to many people and there has been discussion about the treatment by the code enforcer. So I hope the one that, if we decide to do that for financial reasons, is someone that will truly look out for the residents of Holley and not have any kind of agenda.
I agree with Alexa. It's got to, the code enforcement has to be fair across the board. You can't pick and choose who you're going to enforce situations on and who you're not going to. And I think consolidating them is a good way to save money for the town. So I think it would be beneficial for the towns that consolidate for it.
I think I know where this question's coming from. Governor Cuomo is pushing for shared services, and there is a committee out there now that's looking into making a countywide code enforcement. They're examining those things, but the problems that come up with that is each village and each town has different codes, so they'd have to come up with universal codes for everything. So, I mean, it would be nice to combine Holley, Kendall, whatever, stuff like that, if it would be possible. At this point right now, I say it might be a countywide thing that might be happening.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Well, actually, Kevin just about spoke with all my answers here. It's a possibility of a cost savings, but all towns and villages do have different codes, so it's not as easy as it sounds. You either have to, somebody has to learn all the codes from all the different villages and towns, which would be probably pretty darn difficult, or you have to make them uniform. And if they make them uniform, that means your residents are going to have some changes. Because the codes will be made, it may not be the code you currently have, it might be what another town or village has.
Thank you. This first question goes to Mr. Shubman first. Please state your opinion on hiring or appointing a village administrator to handle the day-to-day running of the village.
I don't know that I really have an opinion either way on that. I guess I'd have to really think about that a little bit more and come to conclusion on it. I'm not prepared to answer that right now.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think that's a good idea. Holley is not big enough to have an administrator. Other villages that got more stuff going on. Holley is so small that we really don't need an administrator because you don't have that many employees and that much stuff going on. I'm not sure if Village of Albany has one or not, but my opinion, Holley doesn't need one.
Ms. Nenny?
I also am not for that. The village is too small. I do not think it's necessary. And I do believe that this is some sort of a rumor going around the village because some of us heard it yesterday, that was something that might be being considered, and it is not being considered. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this is going to go all the way across the board to everybody, just the trustees, but no, I don't think that is a wise decision.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with everyone. If we are looking to keep taxes down and keep our budget in check, there is no reason to add in an employee that is not needed at this time.
Thank you. This next question is going to go to everybody. We've finished with the questions that we had for only the trustees. If you have any additional questions, send them up at any time. Just raise your hand and we'll bring the questions up. Mr. Lynch, you begin this.
30 seconds. 30 still.
Yes. Thank you. During the past year, how have you supported the village through your volunteer efforts?
Well, I wasn't on the June Fest committee, but I worked at the June Fest. I'm a volunteer at the VFW all the time. I don't know if that counts for the village, but I do a lot of volunteering at the VFW, and probably that's about all I do.
Thank you. During the past year, how have you supported the village through your volunteer efforts?
That's a tough question. Supported the village during volunteer. Well, I work here at Holley School as an armed security guard. I talk to kids on a day-to-day basis. I get to them, we have conversations, I get through to them. That's not volunteer, I do get paid for that, but I enjoy it. Years past, I've coached, volunteered coach for the school. I've coached for summer leagues, so I have volunteered in the past, but this year, no, I have not.
For myself, I have participated at great length in the June Fest Committee, also our Festival of Lights Committee. We call it our Community Events Committee. Also, on top of my mayoral duties, which is normal business operations, that also involves a lot of evening time, meeting with county legislators, other folks, and things like that. I'm not sure if that quite qualifies as volunteerism, but it certainly goes beyond the normal day-to-day, 8 to 5 kind of an operation. So the mayoral duties certainly go far into the evening sometimes, and certainly go into your personal life quite a bit.
In the past year, it's been mostly things for the village. June Fest took quite a bit of time planning that, and thanks to actually Krista Wiley over there in the corner who volunteered plenty of time. Since being a trustee, it's harder to find all that extra time too for the volunteerism. And I am a past Girl Scout leader. I was on the sports boosters for a couple of years and volunteered in their food stands and some of the extra things that went around there. But in the past year, mostly it's been strictly working for the village, volunteering for those things.
I think I am very fortunate enough to be able to volunteer pretty much all of my time. I do a lot for the school. I work with sports boosters. I'm co-president of the PTSA, so anything that truly surrounds the elementary students or high school students, I'm pretty much there supporting them and their families. When I was a part of St. Mary's Church, there's always opportunities to volunteer there at June Fest doing the barbecue chicken and other things like that.
I volunteer, I'm a member of the Holley Sports Boosters, so I spent a vast majority of my time down at the soccer field volunteering down at the Woodlands during soccer games, working in the concession stands, and doing stuff down there, down at the Woodlands, with the sports boosters.
Okay, thank you. This question is for the mayoral candidates. It's very similar to a question we already asked, so I'm going to read it the same way. You might have a different perspective on it. Please state your opinion on hiring and/or appointing a village administrator to handle the day-to-day running of the village. Mr. Morrow, you begin.
I don't believe it's necessary. First thing, it's gonna be another wage, which is going to be more money out of the budget. I think we're a small enough community where we can handle our own. We have a village clerk, the village clerk has an assistant. We have plenty of people within our board and our village office that definitely can do the job. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Schrecken?
Sure, yeah, it's absolutely not necessary. And I believe the rumor that was going around is that there was a plan to do so. And this rumor stretched from firing all supervisors to just firing the clerk. There's been a number of these rumors going around. They're all completely false. If anybody attended the budget meetings, there's no position, there's no dollar value set aside for a salary for an administrator. There's no plan to, it's ridiculous. But it will not happen. The village is way too small to have a village administrator.
Okay, thank you. I should have caught that when it came through for the trustees, because it's an important question for the mayoral candidates as well. Anybody that serves on the board, it could be pivotal, so, but I'm glad you did address it. Ms. Nanny? Do you believe there is an issue with the village board meeting and the town board meeting conflicting?
I realize they are on the same night. They've been on the same night for many, many years. I guess that's something that could be looked at changing. I'm not 100% sure it's necessary. I know in the village, we do not get very many people at our meetings. If we had a lot of people there, it might be something bigger to look at. You know, if there's something that was really important and we had a lot of interest in changing it, that's something that could certainly be considered.
Thank you. This question is for everybody. Yep.
I would look into making those meetings at a different night, because I think being in this town and being a part of the county, our residents should be able to attend both of those meetings if they choose to or not. Just the option of being able to attend both of those meetings, because both of those offices do impact their lives.
Thank you.
I believe it would be beneficial to look into scheduling them on different nights to allow the village to attend both sets of meetings if they choose to. If they're on the same night, they can't do that.
I always wondered that myself, why they were both on the same night, ever since I've been on the village board. There's always the option of changing it. I really have not much of an opinion on it. I mean, it'd probably be better off if everybody if it was. But I always just wondered myself why we did that.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow?
I believe it would be very easy. We're on the same Tuesday. Why don't we just switch it 1 week for opposite week of the town of Murray? I think it'd be very easy and be very beneficial to any village resident who wants to attend the town of Murray. We are in the town of Murray.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would, similar to Connie, I mean, our meetings have been on the same night for a number of years. Our attendance at our meetings has been pretty minimal. If it was certainly an issue, I would love to have more. If there's anything we can do to encourage more people to attend our meetings, I think that that's a very important thing to do. It hasn't been an issue till now. I would say in the last year it's come up a couple of times, and it's something that we would consider.
Okay, thank you. This goes for trustees only. Ms. Downey, you answer it first. What do you feel is a primary responsibility of a village trustee?
I see the primary responsibility of a village trustee is to be available to their community members. I know a lot of it has to do with the budgeting and the law and all the things that happen in the meetings. But if you're not out there communicating with your neighbors and friends or just whoever is out there, how can you make your village decisions without knowing what your villagers need?
Thank you.
I think a village trustee needs to be present and out in the community. They should be speaking to everybody in the community. If there's an issue that's arising, the community should feel comfortable to come to that trustee, and that trustee should be going back to the mayor and being like, hey, this is what, I'm being told, this is what's going on, let's look into it, let's, talk about it. But if the trustees aren't present and aren't communicating with all members of the community, then, we're not knowing what's going on.
Thank you.
Well, trustees are like the checks and balances of the budget too. I mean, part of the job, when you go to the meetings, you got to make up the budget, you got to make sure the money's being spent right. You got to make sure that the employees, when they go out and spend, buy equipment and stuff like that, you're the ones that make these decisions. And sometimes on the village board, we have different decisions different opinions about what's to be bought and how things will be run. And that's what the village board trustees are all about. The mayor makes decisions, and the trustees doesn't necessarily make decisions, but the trustees make decisions at the mayor's ideas. But the village trustees need to do the checks and balances when it comes to the spending of the budget.
Ms. Downey?
I think as trustees, at least I know I am always out talking to people in the public. No, I don't always see everybody. That's not exactly the easiest thing to do, is to contact everybody in the village every time something's going on. Sometimes there's not even that much time. But I definitely am out asking people about what their opinions are when there are things going on. The most important thing is being good stewards of the money. If you're not good stewards of the money, you got some major problems going on. So being good stewards of the taxpayers' money and making the important decisions, taking everything into consideration and listening to everybody's opinion, that's what I think is most important.
Okay, this one is to everybody, beginning with Mr. O'Mara, and it's, is the ability to the village meeting the financial match for grant monies a hardship for the village? I think what the question is, the value of searching out grants, and do you believe it puts a hardship on the village, or is that offset by the fact that we're going through the grant process and getting outside money in? It comes from a couple of different questions that came up, but that's basically the summary.
Well, I believe grants, obviously when you research grants, there's a cost to the village at any grant. It could be a 60-40, 70-30, whatever it's going to be. Through Gates Police Department, we used to have our own grant writer. Again, you're paying for the grant, but you're either going to give it back in man hours, or you're going to get that pay, and then you're going to have man hours to take care of the rest of that grant, either 70-30, 60-40. I believe we need to really look into it to see if that grant is really essential, to see if we can, handle that load, and see if we can handle the money that's going to go along with it.
I believe if properly researched and you have good budgeting to back it up, these grants are not a hardship to the village. The two that we've obtained, the water grant, which is about $2.1 million, that's a 60-40 split. So you're taking a $2.1 million project and you're only responsible for 40% of it. Sidewalk project is an 80-20 split. So again, you're talking about a $2.3 million project where you're responsible for 20%. Your percentage that you have to make up, you can make it up in-kind services, so the time that your village staff work on those projects can go towards towards your match. And the more that you can put in, the less you have to finance for the long term. It's also important to note that the water grant, the portion that we would have to finance long term on that is an interest-free loan through the EFC. Okay, and the sidewalk grant would be more of a conventional, but it would be certainly a long term. So the short answer is no, I don't believe it's a hardship.
Thank you.
Most good things come with a cost. The hardship might be not obtaining the grant, not doing the project. The hardship might be if we didn't have these grants, yeah, we gotta kick in some money. But the hardship's walking down the sidewalks that aren't fixed. So that can go both ways. And I think, again, if that grant's gonna be hardship, you wouldn't be applying for it.
Thank you.
I agree with what is being said, that grants aren't a hardship if we are looking into grants that are going to better our community, especially short-term and even long-term. If we are going to seek out grants that fix the water and the sidewalks and the streets and the quality of life here, we can have room in our budget to offset the 60-40, the 70-30, I don't see why our community wouldn't do it.
I agree with what Alexa said. I think it's something that, we need to look into, and, like she said, if it's gonna make everything in the village better, then we should go for the grants, whether it be 60-40, 70-30, and if the budget calls for it, then, we might as well go for it and, make everything, the sidewalks better and everything better.
Okay, the two grants that we got going on right now, the water line that's coming in would never have happened if there wasn't a grant. The village would never been able to substantially afford that in the long run. I mean, and a lot of it, like Brian says, a lot of it's in-kind service that we can take care of, so it's not that much of a burden money-wise. But most of them are interest-free loans that we do get. But if it wasn't for grants, we wouldn't have new sidewalks and we wouldn't have new water lines.
Thank you. This question is for everybody. It's a consolidation of several questions that came up. But how would you promote effective teamwork if you're not elected with everyone that ran on your platform? And I think it's different from a mayoral perspective, as it might be for a trustee. So take it from your point of the position that you're running on it. But the question is for everybody. We'll begin with Mr. Amaro.
I would put all differences aside. I can get along with everybody, but I would put all differences aside. We have one goal in mind: make Holley great again. That's my saying, and that's what I'm going to go with. So, I mean, we can put all differences aside and move on and make this village what it needs to be, what it was 25 years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, similarly, ever since I've been on the board, I've always looked at the village board, whether I was in the trustee position or as the mayor. I look at it as a management team. I think you have to go at projects, or whatever the goal is, whatever the discussion you're having. You need to have a vigorous discussion amongst your board. You need to look at it as a management team. And a good leader sitting in the trustee spot needs to find ways to find common ground, to bring different members of the board, if they don't happen to agree, to find common ground, so you can still move the project or whatever you happen to be working on to move it forward.
I agree with everything that's being said. Boards don't always agree. And sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a different opinion. You need everybody to get along, but a difference of opinion brings different things to the table, and that's how progress is made. But you definitely don't want the major differences where people just are not getting along. And I also can get along with anyone.
Thank you.
I view myself as a people person, so I really would have no problem working with anyone who has a difference of opinion as myself. Like Connie said, difference of opinion does bring about a progress, better relationships, because you develop trust with each other, you develop a sense of respect, and that's what you want in a board. People who can work together, respect each other's opinion, and do what's best for the town.
What everybody brings to the table is everybody brings something different. So what you bring to the table may be different than what Alexa brings. So you may not see what she sees, but then it opens your eyes to it. So I think everybody will work cohesively together for you all have the same common goal. So I think that's what, the board and the trustees, everybody has to work cohesively together to get everything done and accomplished.
Pretty much what all they said is what I would say. I mean, you know, everybody has a common goal to do the good for the village. And, you know, everybody has different personalities. When I first got on the village board, I mean, sometimes somebody would look at an opinion, give them an opinion, and I go, I never would look at it that way. And it changed my mind about the way I would look at things. So, but yeah, you can get together with difficult people, if you want to put it that way, or and just come to a common goal.
Okay, thank you. We have one final question. Unless you have any other questions from the floor, this would be the time to bring it up. We do have one. Mr. Sarek, you begin this question, and this is for everybody. Would you initiate and/or support a boat kayak launch in Holley, maybe a multi-task park launch?
Short answer is yes. I think that's a fantastic idea. Absolutely. I think in order to pull that off, I think you would have to approach grants. You look for grant funding opportunities to pull it off. But the short answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with what Brian said. It sounds like a great idea. That's something that would affect the budget probably, unless you could get some grant money. What I was saying is I do agree with Brian. I think it is a good idea, but it's something that you would have to consider getting a grant for if there was one out there, because if you didn't, that definitely would affect the budget.
I agree. Finding a grant that would help that happen would be a wonderful thing for the community. It would bring visitors back to our town. It would give a lot of the water-loving community members here something fun to do also.
One moment, please. For those of you that did not hear the question, it's would you initiate and/or support a boat kayak launch in Holley, maybe a multi-task part launch? Thank you.
I think it's a great idea. You see out on the canal so many kayakers as it is. So I think having that part as part of the, down by the canal bridge, I think it's a wonderful idea. But like Connie said, I think we would need a grant to help offset the cost, because it would throw the budget out of whack.
Yeah, it would be nice in Holley. I'm not sure if the Canal Corporation will go for it. Since they have a boat launch down a mile away from the bridge. But I mean, it'd be nice to have, but I really don't see it happening.
I believe that goes along with our question in the beginning that was answered about beautification of the canal. If we're making the canal beautiful, why would we not want to put a boat launch in for a kayak, bringing visitors to the village, bringing visitors to the possible businesses that we may have, the restaurant that we may have open. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. If you'd like to stand up and stretch for a minute, I'd like to give candidates a few moments to gather your thoughts, or we're getting ready to go into your closing statements.
There were some questions that we had prepared for that were written on our letter. Does anyone have the answer in that email? They were on the letter that we on the letter. Because I think the prepared
Could I borrow a copy?
I didn't bring the letter.
I think you covered that. You covered the hot topic. Feel like the hot topic. These are good questions. That's good. And very good. These.
Like just closing?
Nope.
Do something else?
We got 3.
Are they 30-second questions?
No, these are 1 minute.
1 minute.
What time you got?
7:12.
Everybody's prepared to always.
Yes, which one we're talking about, there's all these ones.
Are we doing the introduction?
Why you're running this with rights of these ones.
You take your seats, you're ready to begin.
Yeah.
We have 3 editorial questions that we would like to ask. We have the time. It's from the editorial staff, and the candidates are prepared to answer them. And so we're going to answer those first, and then we're going to move on to closing statements. The 1 minute questions, please. And we're going to start with Mr. Holley. What's the hot topic in the village of Holley today?
As I walked around talking to people and getting petitions signed and just meeting and greeting people, the hot topic that came up was obviously the old high school. It's a great accomplishment. I mean, it sat there for years, just deteriorating. It's a beautiful building. I look forward to it being completed. I think the front grounds would make a lovely area for Christmas trees. I had ideas in my head of a big, 20-foot Christmas tree out in front, that in the center of town, because that is the direct center of town that everybody sees once they get to that red light. I think it would be beautiful.
Thank you very much.
I guess that was my hot topic as well. The revitalization of the old Holley High School, or the Holley Gardens project, is obviously first and foremost on everybody's mind. Just picturing to see that tremendous piece of history with the columns restored, the windows, the doors, the brick, and picture a meeting like this 2 years from now, being able to host that candidate forum in that auditorium, I think is going to be tremendous. There's a couple other things that are going on with that project that I just want to let you know. There is going to be an RTS bus stop there for the tenants, and there's site improvements going on for the parking lot and the grounds. And once that parking lot is improved, that is going to be subdivided off and conveyed to the village. That will end up being a village municipal lot. It'll provide for parking directly for the tenants, and it will also provide an opportunity so we can have visitor parking for the village office as well as visitors for the tenants. I can't express how proud I am of this accomplishment and the hard work that went into it. I'm so happy to be able to see it all happen. And construction will begin this fall.
Okay, we need to use the microphone. They're having difficulty reading in the back, and there's nothing wrong with a shared vision. So when you have the same answer, you have the same hot topic, that's actually good because it means you're well informed. What is the hot topic in the village of Holley today?
Well, again, going around door to door, you hear plenty of things. The school was definitely probably the hottest, and that is being taken care of, as everybody's well aware of. The sidewalks was another one, and that's also being addressed, at least in a portion of the village, and hopefully more eventually. Then there was the lack of a store and the bank. And, it's not really the village's fault that they're not there. Everyone in the community needs to support those things when they're here. If these businesses and banks aren't profitable, they're not going to stay around. The only bank in Elba is now closing, so Elba's going to be just like we are. We recognize that. We've tried to get a meat place to come here. We've tried to get other places to come, so it's not for lack of trying. This current board has definitely tried to do that, and we'll continue to try. But we have to realize, too, that times are different. Everybody's banking online, banking on their phone. Everybody's downsizing, trying to save money, just like they're trying to get us to save money. The other agencies are also.
Thank you.
Definitely one of the hot topics we've encountered is people want businesses to set up shop here once again. The town residents would love to have a grocery store back. Definitely the restoration and creation of the housing in the old high school will definitely help the chances of this happening. We have to work diligently to make sure that the efforts started by the mayors before us continue and are realized. We look forward to positive effects this will have. And the opening of one business will lead to the opening of another and bring some life back to the village square for its residents and its visitors.
Thank you.
The hot topic that I encountered were the conditions of the roads and the sidewalks. I know we have the grant for them, but it's only doing a portion of the village. You know, if each road in the village had one good sidewalk, then, you know, the residents wouldn't have to walk on the roads. You know, parents wouldn't have to push their strollers on the roads. Kids wouldn't have to ride their bikes on the roads. That was a big thing. I know when my kids were little, I had to do the same thing. You know, I couldn't use the sidewalks. And that was a huge thing when we were talking with the residents, you know, just the not being able to use the sidewalks.
Thank you.
Well, of course, my hot topic, of course, is the school. Being the last class that graduated out of there, I was just so proud when we got that grant, the home leasing got the grant to do that. So I can't wait for the village office to be moved in there, like Brian said, have a stage that we're gonna have for a forum like this. And, I mean, going in there, looking at that old school, I just can't wait for that to happen.
Thank you. Next question is, what happens when there is a budget shortfall?
I believe when there's a budget, I believe when there's a budget shortfall, I believe the board and the mayor didn't do their job. We should never have a budget shortfall when a budget is pre-approved and gone through over and over before it's finally approved. So we should never have a budget shortfall. But if there is, again, the board and the mayor should be held liable for it.
The best answer is not to have them. And how you not have them is you plan some more. And then throughout the year, you make good decisions. And that's how you avoid them. I'm proud to say we've had none in the last 2 years. This is because we've gone through a rigorous budgeting process. And I believe we've honed in on what it costs to truly run the business that is the Village of Holley. My experience with going through these budgets over the last 5 years has been invaluable. My division that I run at my professional life is much larger from a revenue standpoint, but this municipal accounting and municipal budgets is substantially different, and it takes a lot of time to learn it. So we need to understand these budgets in order to make good decisions. You know, one of the things that we had a contingency budget over the last couple of years, which we've not used, thankfully. And again, I can't stress enough that scrutinizing purchases, evaluating them throughout the year, and that's what we've done over the last 2 years. And we've come in under budget the last 2 years. This has allowed us to hold the tax rate and put away a decent amount in our unexpended fund balance, which is the village's savings account, if you will, which can be used for future tax offsets and projects and grants and projects and equipment purchases and things like that.
Thank you.
Thankfully, with the sound budget planning and watching spending, we haven't had to worry about a budget shortfall, just like Brian has said. We plan the budget very carefully, trying to take all things into consideration. And we also do build in the contingency line for a case of emergency, like Brian said. And we hope we don't have to use it, but it is there if we need to. Because we watch the budget so carefully, we would see if there was potential for a shortfall before it actually happened. In that case, you'd have to, of course, look at freezing spending and only paying for your payroll and benefits, as well as essential purchases to keep the village running. If it was serious, you'd have to look at the possibility of layoffs or the borrowing of money. But like I said, with careful planning and closely watching the budget, it wouldn't get to that point unless something really unforeseen happened.
Thank you.
Hopefully, if we dot our I's and cross our T's, this will not occur, but we don't live in a perfect world. When a budget shortfall occurs, as officials of the village, we must go back and look at why this occurred in the first place, and then proceed to rectify that situation, in the hopes that such a financial situation will ever occur again. Meanwhile, it is a good idea to have in the budget, a contingency plan that can help us during such an unfortunate state. Next, we will have to look into what is deemed as unnecessary spending and tweak accordingly.
Thank you.
Like all these guys have said, there shouldn't be a shortfall, but if there is, you know, unnecessary spending would have to stop. We would also have to review the budget to see where the shortfall occurred and how it could have been prevented. The board would also need to revert to the contingency budget to, you know, offset the shortfall and make sure that it doesn't happen again in the future. You know, we would have to make sure that everything is accounted for and built in appropriately.
Well, with this, unfortunately, we haven't had that problem the last few years that we've been on the village. Now, we do have a contingency that's a backup, hopefully we don't have to use. But if we did have that problem, like we did, we'd have to freeze spending and just be able to just pay our employees. What we have in the village right now, it's hard to lay off anybody because we don't really have, we have just a bare minimum of people to maintain what's going on. So we would just have to stop spending and hopefully none of the equipment would break down and look at it eventually.
Okay. Once again, this is the final question before we go to closing statements, unless there's anything else coming from the floor. Okay. Mr. Marr, how do you provide the same level of or improved service without negatively impacting the tax base?
I believe we can keep the same level of service that we have in the village of Holley by consolidating. Governor Cuomo's on the big kick of consolidating everything. If we consolidate, we can save money in every town, village, city. It's cost effective, it will work, it's been working, and I believe we can do the same thing.
Thank you.
Well, I love this question because to me, this is what the role of government is to utilize the tax dollars that we collect and give our taxpayers the most bang for their buck. With the exception of Lindenville, we have the lowest tax rates of all the villages in Orleans County, while still striving to provide the same level of service. There's challenges and remedies, you know, that we encounter. Sewage treatment plant. Our facility was being operated by a private company. The budgets weren't going very well. We contracted shared services with the Village of Albion. Similarly with the police department, we were looking for a way to improve that service. We contracted with the Village of Albion for the police chief services. Other relationships that we have, we work closely with the school here. Our DPW and the school staff here work together all the time. Last thing I mentioned in one of my newsletters that I sent out, that we're looking to revitalize the old canal bed up at the east end of the village, okay, which is next to the community garden. That's being done because myself and Ken Roller are working together. We're going to borrow some county equipment, be able to get in there, take down some trees, and be able to bring that old canal bed back to life. These are shared services, and this is what working together can provide. That's the benefit that it can provide to the taxpayers. It's a very important topic to me. I'm sorry for running over again.
In order to provide the same level of service or better and not affect the taxes, you have to be constantly thinking and sometimes think outside the box. It could be getting involved with contracts outside agencies, and unfortunately Brian's already touched on these with the police chief in Albion and also the sewer. When we did that, we kept control of those budgets and of the police department, so it stays 24/7, 7 days a week. We didn't lose anything. The service was even improved. In some cases, instead of buying an expensive piece of equipment, it could be more cost effective to contract the service out instead of buying it. We did that with the street sweeping. We were in need of a new street sweeper, looked at the cost to purchase a decent one and the longevity of it, and it was a much better deal to contract for the service. If something changes, you can always go back out and purchase it at a later date. Also, you could network with other governmental and municipal agencies for the sharing of services, and just by talking to them, you learn a lot about what they are doing and get ideas to possibly use in your government to save money or improve your services.
Thank you.
To ensure that a budget is adequate enough to keep the village running effectively without raising taxes, we must take the time to look at each line item and ensure that it is reasonable, and if it is believed to be unnecessary, to reduce it. Well, then we will have to make those necessary adjustments to that line item. With that said, there should be a level of understanding that things may function differently because of cuts and not raising taxes. I agree that we should take advantage of shared services and continue to do so, so that we may have to do that, but that should not affect the quality of life in the village or the quality of service provided by our village employees.
Thank you.
I agree with Alexa. If we, share services, consolidate services, and, make no unnecessary expenditures, those are ways that we can, stabilize or even improve the tax base.
Thank you.
If I could pretty much touch back on what Brian and Connie said. We've done a lot of shared services already, and if we have to, we'd have to look into more shared services to make good work. And other things, that maybe have to get more grants that would help major projects if we didn't have a shortfall.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick minute. We're going to move on to closing statements. I think we're going to start with Mr. Lynch and move up the table in reverse order. And that'll be the opposite order of what we began. It's a 1 minute closing statement. Prepared for that. Before they begin, I'll give them a chance to gather your thoughts once again. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that made this possible. And Lake Country Media Week, Lake Country Penny Saver, the Orleans Hub, the Holley Central School District. Let's have a round of applause for all of them. While they're thinking, I'd like to say you sent up excellent questions and a nice number of questions, a variety of stuff. You're great to have here on the forum. Very often, we'll get halfway through and we're working at editorial questions or something that's relevant. But it sounds like you hit a lot of the topics that are important and clearly important for candidates because they had some wonderful answers. So Mr. Lynch, when you're ready to begin, it's a 1 minute closing statement.
Okay. I just like to close and say I'd like to finish the jobs that we started. Like I say, I'm very, very much into the old high school and being part of the grants for the sidewalk and the water. I'd like to be on part of the board to finish all these things. And besides being retired, I'm gonna walk around the village all the time. I get to talk to people. And I hear earfuls from everybody. And I just wish that I could stay on the board.
Thank you.
So in our, walkabouts, getting petitions signed, there was a lot of chatter about the lack of experience that I may have. However, I want to remind everyone that when the current board were first elected, they also lacked experience. Sometimes those with no experience are the best people for the job, as they are more apt to listen when spoken to instead of pretending to listen. Don't confuse my lack of experience with a lack of commitment and dedication that I will bring to the village when elected as trustee. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I understand that I too may lack experience, and I just ask you that it does not cloud your voting decision. I am here for one reason, and that is to do the best that I can for the village and you guys, its residents. I am dedicated and committed. Together we can continue with the grants that have been in place for many years, seek different ones to benefit the town for years to come. Together we can restore the beauty and the infrastructure, the businesses, the community. We can do this together and we can stand proud together. And I'm ready to put this historical canal town back on the map.
Thank you.
In closing, I'd also like to thank everybody once again for coming and for, obviously the volunteers. We really appreciate that. I also would like to see us finish what we've started here. There is a lot more work to be done. I'm not going to say everything's perfect because it's not, but we definitely have made a lot of progress the last 2 years, and even prior to that. We've got the school going, we've got the grants coming in for the sidewalks that are going to be done for a third of the village and the water infrastructure, and a lot of planning went into coordinating those. I want to see it finish. I want to see it carried through the rest of the village. Again, there's no guarantees. And those aren't the only things. There's also other things that we'd like to accomplish. It's going to take the work of a whole team. It isn't just one person. It takes a lot of work with the other employees. And I've got the experience and the knowledge because I did work in the office before and from being a trustee. And I'd like to continue to give back to the community and share my experience at the table, helping to make these decisions and continue heading us in the right direction.
So in my opening statement, I outlined my experience and commitment to the village through my years of service on the planning board, then trustee, now as mayor. I did not show up one day just looking to be mayor. I spent lots of time dedicated to planning efforts such as the comprehensive plan and BOA committee. These were seeds that were planted years ago that are bearing fruit today. Also years as trustee learning about the village and financial and operational issues. And most recently as mayor, where I've combined this local experience with my 25 years of experience in consulting engineering to provide solid leadership and direction. Given the current state of our village, the projects that are just on the verge of beginning, and the infrastructure projects and improvements that are still needed for the future, I feel my qualifications, professional experience, and just as importantly, the work that we put in to date make me uniquely qualified to be mayor and lead at this time. When I first ran for trustee, I stated the following on my campaign letter. My commitment to you is that I will continue to work with the trustees, the village staff, and community groups in a cooperative and collaborative spirit on behalf of all village residents. I renew this commitment to you now, and I respectfully request your support to re-elect myself, as well as my fellow trustees, Connie Nenny and Kevin Lynch, on June 19th. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start off by thanking everybody for coming out tonight. Regardless of the rumors that are going around about my lack of, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, in a nutshell, I'm driven, I'm determined to make Holley great again. That's my promise to you, and yes, I am going to make a promise, and I promise to do just that. I'm going to sit by, and I'm going to get everybody on board and to make this town what it used to be 25, 30 years ago, where storefronts were filled, everybody was walking around, we had a supermarket where people can walk into, we had the village offices where it was, now we're gonna have the old high school with people in it, it's gonna be beautiful. So, hopefully you can get out and vote on the 19th.
Thank you. Election day is June 19th, it's from noon to 9. Please get out and vote.
Can you explain how you can vote?
Who can vote? Do the Holley residents.
And if it's age and how does it prove where you live?
You need ID?
Tell them.
Okay. You need ID with you to vote. Registered voters, residents of the village of Holley are eligible to vote, but you need to be able to prove that when you walk in to vote. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to make sure the old teacher may think you.
Hannah, they, and the timekeeper kept me on task this evening. You did good. They did good, didn't they? Thank you so much. That concludes our forum. And again, how about a round of applause for it? This is a great platform for candidates.